All right. We're coming back. Gyi and I did a presentation at ABA Tech Show where we outlined 12 different roles for a marketing dream team. If we were to hire the marketing dream team for a law firm, there were 12 different roles that we included on that. We're going to highlight, I'm going to ask Gyi to pick one, and I'm going to pick one of the marketing. If you were to internally hire a marketing dream team, I've got my pick, Gyi. Among our ABA Tech Show presentation list, who's your pick and who do you want to talk about?
I'm going to pick the local social butterfly.
All right. Tell me more about the local social butterfly. What does this person do? How do you find them? And how do you deploy them in your firm?
Well, and we set this up as this would be a person you hire, which I think, this is certainly could be a full-time role or part of an internal role. It could be somebody, could you independent contract this, somebody in the local community? Maybe, but, more likely an internal role. But, it goes back to what we were talking about before, in my opinion. So if maybe you're not the CEO, but you're not spending all of your time marketing, or you're going to hire somebody to do this. Maybe it's a younger lawyer. But the role itself is you're in the community, you're building relations with local businesses, you're going to these local events, and you're using social media tools to demonstrate those connections. Maybe you're sponsoring, maybe you're, I think, again, even in the local context, maybe even there's some overlap with like the being a guest on local podcasts, but you're in the local community, socializing and connecting with folks. And again, this is the type of thing that lawyers have been doing a long time, but I think that the missing piece has been that they're bringing it online. They're getting better at it. We've talked about some examples of that, but this is a key role. If you serve a local community, this is how you get that, you start building that brand affinity. People start knowing who you are, knowing what you're all about, and you're out there publishing on it too, on social media.
I like this role because one of the things you can do with this person, the ideal person for me in this role, they're already established. You're not trying to build relationships in a community. You're basically leveraging someone's pre-existing relationships in a community. And so you can do that through a really, really solid hire, but it's really finding someone to leverage their network to expand your own. I think this is a really, really good role. I've seen lots of law firms very successfully look for these types of people, and they're easy to find if they're out there. They're easy to find, and so I love this role.
Yeah, and if you're struggling to find one idea for looking for them, is just go look for local hashtags, right? So if you're in a smaller city, even a big city, but go look for the hashtags around the geographic location. Around, I know here where I am, there's a bunch of, whether it's photographers or bloggers or foodies, just add your city to that hashtag and they'll start to pop up in your Instagram feed. Cool.
You know what my pick is?
What do you got?
I'm going to go the complete opposite side on the spectrum. I want to hire the mathematician. I want to hire someone who not only understands the business math of what we're looking for. You and I talk about this all the time. You're looking for consultations or ideally clients instead of leads. They understand the business math of what you're getting to, but also someone who can stitch all the systems together to create the business math, which means they also understand where those systems aren't perfect. You and I talked about earlier on the podcast, if you can't measure it, you shouldn't do it. Well, the really good mathematician understands that is garbage, right? And that you should still be doing things even though you don't have a perfect avenue to the perfect formula, because the tracking is sometimes imperfect. And so the person who can understand that and understand the business metrics and drive those business metrics, key hire, really, really key hire. And that's probably going to be a much more expensive person than your local social butterfly. And if you don't have the budget for this mathematician, there's got to be that role has to be filled within your organization. And you as the leader of your firm need to be making sure that happens.
So when you think about the mathematician in this context, are you thinking more like CFO or are you thinking more like marketing technology analyst?
I think it's more the latter. This is someone who loves call rail, right? And is going to get into the depths of how do I integrate call rail into my intake management software so that my data gets automatically pushed and I get really good information. This is someone who's going to try and understand, oh, this lead turned into a client and we don't really know where they came from. Is there anything we can do to find the data to determine why Mary hired us? And I'm going to go back and listen in on Mary's first phone call to see if I can answer that question. It's that person. It's the person who is going to lose their mind when your phone call answer rate drops below 97%, right? So it's not really a CFO role. It's a marketing analyst, combination of technology, business insight, and kind of that dirty hands-on roll up your sleeves and answer the question when it's not right in front of you role. I once wrote a piece, this is a long, long time ago, but I once wrote a piece about you need to hire optimistic marketers and pessimistic analysts. And this is someone who doesn't just believe the data that's put in front of them, but they want to know what's behind the data when it's put in front of them.
I'm thinking about this mathematician, and it's interesting too, because like as you mentioned, it's kind of the other end of the spectrum from the local social butterfly. Because like, what's the ROI of the local social butterfly, right? Because of course, some of your as you've talked about dark social many times, some of your qualitative intake questions, people might say, "I know the local social butterfly." Right? Or I listened to the local social butterflies podcast or saw them at an event, right, or that's how I heard about you, and that's great. But my question is, where does the mathematician put I came in, I searched on the name, it's a branded search, and the qualitative data is, I don't know how I found you. Where does that live in the mathematician's spreadsheet?
So it was a branded click?
It's a branded click.
Okay. That falls
maybe
into
a brand bucket? Call a brand bucket?
Well, so that falls into the big brand bucket of I'm not actually sure which specific individual thing it was that made me call you. And the reality is there's not one individual thing. This is a mathematician who understands the reality of the multi-touch world. And, back in the day, Gyi, and this does not go that far back, but, much of what we did was direct response. And it was easy to segment this stuff out. It's changed. The game has changed, and we are dealing with multi-touch, and we are dealing with the growth of brand awareness and brand affinity, right? And so the real mathematician understands that this is not a simplistic MBA answer to I need to draw an accurate pie graph of where all of our clients came from, or I'm going to accurately calculate the ROI of every single dollar we spent. They understand that that is not reality. And I think to understand that you need to have, this is me generalizing, and I'll be mean to MBAs. The MBA who just got out of B school thinks that you can draw that perfect pie graph and calculate the ROI down to the penny. The grizzled veteran understands that that is a fool's errand and understands that these things work together, and trying to get to specificity on those things doesn't work. And so you want the analytical side that understands the reality of the world in which we actually function, but can also critically understand when things are not working or when things are an anomaly. And this is why I said kind of, you want that cynical mathematician to dig into where you think things are working or aren't working to really, really identify that.
I think it's such an important point because, we keep hearing this, oh, they're not measuring, there's no attribution on it, and so therefore stop doing it. And I'm just like, that's so wrong. So if you don't have a brand bucket, if your mathematician doesn't have a brand bucket, I think the brand bucket is a good way to look at it, right? And even if you're working with an agency, that's the other thing too that we see all the time is the agencies will take credit for the brand.
Yes.
And I'm like, no.
Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
Let's go deeper on this. This is so disgusting. It makes me nauseous. I hate this industry. The way they do this, and especially if you do not have insight or look at your Google Ads campaign, okay? They'll run an ad for your name. The click that is generated on that ad for your brand is generated by all the other stuff that we can't actually track. And the agency will then lump that in to the business that has been generated by your advertising campaign, which is utterly garbage bullshit. And they know that, and they're pulling the wool over your eyes. So if you're not segmenting out brand among PPC and even SEO work, right? Like your agency is either stupid or deliberately pulling the wool over your eyes.
No, they're not stupid. They know exactly.
Some of them are
doing.
stupid, Gyi. Some of them are stupid.
The other one so I'm glad you called out SEO, because I think that's the same issue, right? Oh, yeah. Organic traffic's up. Well, yeah, it's brand traffic, right?
Yeah.
If you're not segmenting brand, non-brand traffic and organic, and then I'm gonna give you another one that's recently cropped up is, we see some of the social media consultants now that are clumping paid and organic social media. Those two things are not the same thing. Facebook as a referrer, facebook.com as a referrer isn't giving you nearly enough information, because if at your firm, you're doing the local social butterfly thing and you're posting, stuff on Facebook that's causing people to click through and call you from your organic Facebook stuff versus someone who's managing paid Facebook ads, like, you better be segmenting your organic and paid social media from each other as well, because they're going to be taking credit for all the pictures of your kids graduating kindergarten that you're posting on Facebook. And they're going to say, look, we're generating all this traffic from Facebook.
And this is why it's important to have the mathematician and the social butterfly, right? These are disc profiles that do not overlap very well, or very much at all. And so I do think this is important. The agencies just do such a deliberate job in many cases of conflating attribution to make themselves look good. And this is another reason. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to, this is why I like the mathematician as the in-house person who is a complete cynic, because they're not going to believe the horse shit that a lot of agencies will try and shovel to you.
See, I was going to say the opposite. I agree with that point. I agree that you should have an internal resource. But I was going to say, we beat up on the agencies all the time. But a lot of our listeners, they're doing this themselves. In which case, they should be beating up themselves because they just don't know what they're doing. But two, even your in-house marketing person, right? If they're not segmenting this stuff, and you've got a marketing plan, and they're supposed to be driving, whether it's non-brand paid search traffic, non-brand organic search traffic, or they're managing paid social, it's the same problem. And so it's not necessarily just the agencies do this, and not everybody's doing it. I was being very condescending to the agencies and saying they're doing it intentionally, and a lot of them are. And Conrad's point is some of them just don't even know. It's very true on the in-house side of it, at least in my experience. Conrad, you can tell me if your experience is the same. But a lot of times it's just a lack of knowledge on the in-house side, where they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Right. So it's a really important point to segment that brand, both from a paid, an organic search, as well as a social media.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.